So the first thing we do is make a slip knot. And I always chain 4 slip stitch to make a ring when I start my granny squares. Now, if you like a magic ring instead, by all means, do a magic ring. It creates just a little bit tighter hole in the middle for a magic ring. I don't personally do magic rings very well, so that's why I always stick with my chain 4 slip stitch to form a ring. I grab the end of my unused yarn and I tuck that in as I'm making these stitches. So in this round, we're going to be making 16 double crochet. To start off, I always use a stacked single crochet instead of chain 2 or chain 3. Again, you're welcome to use what's good for you, what you're used to, but I like the look of this stacked single crochet, so that's what I'm going to be doing in this video. All right, so first step is insert my hook into the center of the ring, yarn over, and I pull up a loop, and basically I'm making a single crochet, like so. Then to complete the stitch, I'm going to insert my hook through the left vertical bar of that single crochet. And sometimes you just kind of have to work it on there. I yarn over and pull up a loop. And then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. And I have a stacked single crochet. From here, that counts as my first double crochet. From here, I'm simply going to make 15 more double crochet in my ring. Now, one of the things that you'll find when working this ring is that it gets fairly tight. If you start with a magic ring, you have the luxury of having a little bit more yarn to work around. But if you're working with your chain 4 like I do, your ring gets pretty tight. So I have to keep just ooching those double crochets over to the right a little bit to create a little bit more room. And then after I get so many double crochets, I count. I can't stress enough how much counting makes a difference. I've caught myself, even at this stage of the game, I caught myself missing stitches. And if I don't count soon enough, I end up frogging a whole lot, and no one wants that, right? All right, so I'm going to get over to where it looks like I'm at the beginning. Take a break. And when I count this circle, I always like to start from my hook and work my way back to the beginning to make sure that I haven't missed anything. So I count the top loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I actually need 5 more single crochets in here. So this is going to get a little bit tight, but that's all right. So we have 1 and 2, 3, scooch it a little bit, 4 and 5 to finish. Now, again, I'm not going to take my word for it. I'm going to count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 I have. All right, so there's the top of the stacked single crochet. To end round 1, I'm simply going to join to the top of that. All right, so that's round 1. So in this round, we're going to be working 2 double crochet clusters. In other words, clusters that are made up of 2 partial double crochets. To start, I have to do something a little bit different so that I can get that cluster started. So in this case, I am going to use a chain, but it's going to become a part of that first 2 double crochet cluster. All right, so I'm going to chain 2. And in that very same stitch right there, I'm going to do a double crochet. And that actually becomes our first cluster. In between the clusters, I chain 1. And we're working in every stitch around. So I'm going to go to the very next stitch. And this is where I'd start the first 2 double crochet cluster. I insert my hook, I yarn over, pull through 2 loops, but I don't finish that stitch. Instead, I yarn over, insert my hook in the same stitch, yarn over, pull up, pull through 2 loops. So I have 2 partial double crochets there and 3 loops on my hook. To complete that cluster, I pull, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops. That completes a proper 2 double crochet cluster. So now I have 2, my faux one at the beginning and this one at the second stitch. So after that, I chain 1, and I'm going to do the same thing in the next stitch. So I yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. I'm not done yet. So I yarn over, insert my hook in the same stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2 loops, and to complete the stitch, pull through all 3. Okay, so now I have 3, and I'm going to chain. Don't forget to chain, because that chain 1 space is really important in round 3. So we're going to work that all the way around, and I will meet you at the beginning where we slip stitch to close round 2. All right, so we've arrived at the end of round 2. I just have one more 2 double crochet cluster to do. So I'm going to make sure that I have that done in the last stitch. And always remember to put that chain 1 after it. And before I move on, I'm going to count to make sure I have enough double crochet clusters. I should if I worked in every stitch around. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. All right, I do, 16. Now, where you slip stitch to join this round is in the top of that first double crochet you made, which is actually part of that first partial double crochet cluster. So it's this stitch right here, not the chain, but that first stitch right on top. So I'm going to slip stitch to join right there. Okay, so that completes round 2. In round 3, we're going to be working a double crochet and chain 2 spaces. The double crochets are going to be worked into that chain 1 space that we had after every cluster. To get there and to get started, I have to slip stitch into that first chain 1 space because I can't make it in the top of that stitch. So the first thing I do is slip stitch, and now I'm ready to start. So again, you can use a chain 2 or chain 3 to get started with your double crochet. I use a stacked single crochet, so that's what I'm going to do here. All right. After that, I chain 2 to create a chain 2 space. And I work a double crochet in the next chain 1 space. I skip that cluster and work in the chain 1 space. So there's a double crochet there. And then a chain 2. Find that next chain 1 space, and we're going to work a double crochet into it. And follow that always by chain 2, because those chain 2 spaces become super important in the next round. All right, we're going to do that in every chain 1 space around so that we have 16 double crochet and 16 chain 2 spaces. So I'm going to complete mine and meet you back at the end of round 3. All right, I am at the end of round 3. I have one more double crochet to work, so I'm going to find that last chain 1 space, work a double crochet into it, and chain 2. Where I slip stitch to join the round is in the top of that stacked single crochet right there. So I'm going to slip stitch into that to join my round. And then when I'm finished with that, I'm just going to take a quick look to make sure that I have chain. I've been known to get through this round and forget to chain 2 after a double crochet, and that will not work for my next round. So it is correct. All right, we're going to move on to round 4. All right, this round is the one that gets us to a square. So we're working in the round. I know it gets confusing with all of this terminology. We're always working in the round when we're doing the square, but the shape of what we're working changes. So we've started rounds 1 through 3, form a circle. Now we're going to start the part that creates the square shape, still working in the round. And what we do to get from the circle shape to the square shape is we work stitches of differing heights and then corners so that we get to the point where we have a square. Now, it's not quite a square at the end of this round, but it's close enough that the stitches in the next few rounds pull that out and make it look like a square. So, all right, so let's get round 4 started. So the first thing we're going to do is chain 1. And in that very same stitch, half double crochet. Make sure you don't pull it too tightly because you're going to be working into those later on. In this first chain 2 space, we're going to work 3 half double crochet. So 1, 2, and 3. In the top of this next stitch, we work a single crochet. In the next chain 2, 3 single crochet. All right, in the top of the next stitch, a single crochet. In the next chain 2 space, I work 3 half double crochet. And I finish off that side with a half double crochet in the top of the next stitch. Now, before we move to the corner, I want you to just see, it's not really spread out very well, but it looks a little bit more level than just my square. This is what than my circle. You're going to work this along each side with a corner in between. So let's get to our corner. In the next chain 2 space, I'm going to work a puff stitch. So a puff stitch is yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull up. I now have 3. Do that 2 more times. Now I have 5. Do it 1 more time. Now I have 7 loops on my hook. To complete that puff, I yarn over and pull through all loops on the hook. Now, just a little tip. When you're doing a puff stitch, it's awfully easy to get your hook caught on the loops that you've wrapped around your hook, and then your hook gets stuck. What I do is I make sure that my hook is facing down when I pull it through those 7 loops, and I'll show you that in the next puff, because what we do, we're going to, let's see here, I have to see how many chains are in my corner. We have a chain 3 in the corner, right? So chain 3 after that first puff, and in the same corner, I'm going to work another puff. So watch what I do after I've pulled up all my loops. So yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Yarn over, insert hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. All right, so those are pretty tight together. So what I do is I yarn over, and it doesn't work every time, but hopefully it'll work this time. I point my hook down toward the bottom of the stitch, and look at that. It pulls through easily and hasn't caught on anything. That's how I do it. All right, now there is this next stitch that you're going to work a half double crochet in is called a hidden stitch. And I have a note in the pattern that says, actually not for this round, but just make sure that you don't forget to work into this stitch because the puff stitch might have bled over onto this. To start the next side, I do a half double crochet in that stitch, 3 half double crochet in the next space, okay. In the next stitch, a single crochet. In the next space, 3 single crochet. In the next stitch, a single crochet. In the next space, 3 half double crochet. And to complete the side, I do a half double crochet in that last stitch. All right, so I'm a person who loves patterns because not written crochet patterns, but patterns in numbers because it helps me remember without having to look at the pattern. The side is 4 half double crochet, 5 single crochet, and 4 half double crochet. Now, if you can remember that, it saves you from having to look at your pattern every time you start a new side. But if you can't, the pattern is there for you to use. All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to work a puff, chain 3 puff in that next space, and then I'm going to work around to complete the square portion of my square. Okay, and I'll meet you back at the end of round 4. Okay, so I've made it all the way around round 4, and I'm ready to join. Just want to show you that the half double crochet leans a little bit over to the right. So you want to make sure that you're slip stitching into the correct one because the correct number of stitches is kind of critical for how round 5 works out. So I'm going to look back. Here's my single crochet, half, half, half. There's the top of the half double crochet that I'm going to join to. So I slip stitch in that one. We're actually going to fasten off after round 4. Now, if you're making this in one color, it seems like it wouldn't make any sense to fasten off after this round, but it will because if we start in a corner, we can better align the stitches for the granny stitches we're going to work in the next round. But let me show you what this looks like. So my square is a little bit bunched, right? It looks a little wonky, but like I said, trust me, it will work out just fine when we get to the next round or 2. Now, let me show you how I fasten off. I simply take my scissors, cut that about like so, because you want enough that you have enough to weave in ends. Now, I do what's called an invisible join because I like the way that looks. So I pull the yarn back through the stitch I just made, and I thread it on my tapestry needle. Then we're going to kind of pull this over and just make sure that this loop sits right on top of the loop of the stitch under that I just joined it to. So it's duplicating it, sitting right on top of it. All right, to do an invisible join like this, I skip the stitch after, and I insert my needle under the top loops of the next stitch. So I've skipped a stitch, and essentially what I'm doing is I'm making a duplicate loop over the top of the skipped stitch. So I pull that to a place where it's basically half the size of the loop. I'm going to take my needle insert it back through the center and down through the back. So you'll see down through the back of the original stitch to complete the duplicate loop that sits over the skipped stitch. And voila, you have an invisible join. You can't see it on the top. You can't see it on the side. You can see it on the back. And then I don't weave in my ends right now, but what I'll do is maybe take that end and weave it down a little bit just to secure it, because when I work over the top of it in the next round, I don't want that to pull out. So I just secure that a little bit, take that off my loop, off my needle, sorry, and there's my square. So what we'll do is I'll meet you back at the beginning of round 5.